Chapter 7 to 20, Lightning Queen. The previous evening, a bluish twilight welcomed us. Not bad, I chuckled at the sight of the sunset. The first experience had a variety of things. In the end, the only ones that emerged from the entrance were the three women. Lee Ji-hae and I were carrying the two unconscious women. Yoon-hyuk-soo, he walked with the sword sunk in him. It was possible thanks to his high stamina, but he collapsed right in front of the entrance. His eyes were closed like he was sleeping. Things have been resolved. Shortly after leaving the dungeon, the two women were transferred to the shop operated by the Mithril Guild. They would handle things for a small fee. A place for patients was prepared inside the shop. After emergency first aid was completed, they would be taken to hospital. "What will you do now?" I asked Lee Ji-hae, who was staring at the sky with a blank expression. "Work hard. I will do my best to live." "Do you still plan to continue participating in raids?" She shook the leather pouch filled with cores. "Except for selling my body, there isn't any other high-income jobs for a 25-year-old single woman." Somehow I could feel something in her voice. It seemed like she needed money to live a normal life. Anyway, she hadn't abandoned the idea of exploring dungeons. I nodded and asked again, "Do you intend to join a guild?" Lee Ji-hae opened her mouth without thinking. "If I can earn money safely, then I will sign up, but the screening of the 5 guilds is choosy. If I can't join them, then is it worth signing up to another guild?" 5 famous guilds existed in Korea. Each of them were led by starters, and the reliable raids was the biggest benefit. There are various merits, but it was a big challenge itself joining the business. Lee seemed to have applied to all 5 guilds and failed the steps. It was a pessimistic attitude. I pulled out a business card from your wallet. "Take this." "A business card? Just mention my name and ask for formal admission." "Take it." Lee Ji-hae accepted the business card and read the writing in the middle. "Heaven's Will? Is there a problem?" Heaven's Will was clearly one of the 5 famous guilds. Lee Ji-hae shook her head. "No. Rather, what is your relationship with the Heaven's Will Guild Master?" "There is no need to know that." "Randolph C., tell me honestly, you are a beginner, right?" "I'll take care of it." I didn't have the slightest intention of explaining. I just let Lee Ji-hae imagine whatever she wanted. It didn't matter where her imagination ended up. Lee Ji-hae was locked in her thoughts. The scene of Yoon-hyuk-soo and Kim In-pil was haunting her head. Those series of actions wasn't something a beginner could do. "Perhaps Park Un-taek-si," Lee Ji-hae muttered in a small voice. Park Un-taek had thrown his body towards the creatures. As a result, they were able to escape. However, didn't he have the ability to easily overpower Yoon-hyuk-soo and Kim In-pil? Then couldn't he leave the dungeon on his own? Lee Ji-hae swallowed hard. She should refrain from any speculation. Anyway, it had already happened and she couldn't turn back time. Above all, she couldn't easily deal with the man in front of her. She just imagined it. Lee Ji-hae emptied her head. "Excellent." I looked at Lee Ji-hae with eyes filled with praise. She had the excellent judgment to swallow her words. Her potential was low, but she could be the manager of his raids. A person absolutely can't grasp everything. Anyway, I understand. I will get in contact with them. Lee Ji-hae said with a sigh. This was an opportunity for her. It was a solid path to enter one of the 5 guilds. She wouldn't lose a thing even if it was false. "But what are you going to do with that diary?" I pulled out the diary left behind by Kim In-pil. It was a diary designed in an old-fashioned manner and gave off the scent of manna. I used Mind's Eye to confirm the details again. Name, Book of Command Spells, U. Description, a demon's book of madness. Those with low intelligence are likely to be infected by the madness. If it is used during hunting, the magic power of the diary will rise depending on the system. The special job Command Magician can be inherited. I saw a sneak peek in the dungeon, but it was amazing. A unique rating? In other words, a unique item. The heroes weren't at the level to obtain a rare grade skill or item. That fact that this journal awakened with Kim In-pil was enormous. I wondered why a human had this item and picked it up from Kim In-pil. It also had the ability to inherit a special occupation. It was a unique item at a decent enough level. Kim In-pil had something good. A treasure like this being in the hands of someone with no power was a sin itself. Kim In Pil obtaining something so precious. He must have been a command shaman in a past life. Kim In Pil had died and couldn't keep the treasure anymore. Those without mind's eye wouldn't see the enormous value of the diary and would just think of it as Japtem. I decided to take the diary. I'll take care of it. Burn it if possible. That thing, it must have received a curse. Li Jihei shuddered. The eyes that looked at the diary was full of disgust. The experiences she went through in the dungeon had a substantial impact on her. She had replenished the nutrition, but the mental blow would take time to recover. Li Jihei's shoulders sagged before she turned and said to me, "I will go and try. An unknown beginner? Is this really the business card of Heaven's will? Go and do that. Oh, I should go home and wash first. I also need to go to the hospital. It is difficult. If it is tough, then I can give you a ride. It's okay. I can't depend on you so much. It is comfortable riding in a taxi." Li Jie laughed and started to descend the mountain. Perhaps the next time I saw her would be at Heaven's Will Guild House. I gazed in her direction for a moment before turning back to the dungeon. And I haven't met Yihi. She was so busy that she didn't even realize I entered the dungeon. Yihi was the spirit of the dungeon core. She was in charge of various affairs in the dungeon and made it less bleak. It was possible to Yihi to create characteristics like flowers or a lake on each floor. She is busy. Right now, building the foundation of the dungeon was in full swing, so it must be hectic. I had handed over some points so that she could create necessary things on the 2nd to 4th floors. From the 2nd floor onwards, rare battle gear can be obtained, so I need some precautions. I also left this to Yihi. Crafty places were designed to wake up the spirit of the heroes. It should be proceeding steadily right now. I have to go back. The suit was heavy. I didn't think I would have to wear it in the dungeon for so long. I hit my neck several times before lightly jogging. South Korea was noisy. It had been 9 months since the dungeons appeared. The first guild to break through to the 2nd floor of the dungeon appeared. Heaven's Will. The guild master, who was a starter, Kim Yong-woo. Those 3 characters were spread all over various video and print media. The public television channel, QBS, used a vast amount of funds to get an exclusive interview with Kim Yong-woo. A famous announcer would only get 10 minutes of interview time, but it caused an explosive sensation in South Korea. The contents of the interview were as followed. Guildmaster of Heaven's Will, I'm sure many people are wondering about Kim Yong-woo Sai. Please give a short self-introduction. Nice to meet you. I am the Guildmaster of Heaven's Will, Kim Yong-woo. As you know, I am an awakened and one of the starters. I am 28 years old, single. Thank you for the answer. Then I will quickly jump on to the next question. The dungeons and awakened are the hottest thing this year. Does Kim Yong-woo Sai have any idea have this? The dungeon is obviously a dangerous place. China and the Philippines have suffered significant damage from the monster waves. But as long as the awakened are present, the creatures can't run rampant. When looking at our occupation status window, I think our role is to get rid of the devil that exists at the top of the dungeons. Devil? Are you talking about the devil with 2 horns? Haha, that is everybody's imagination. Actually, I don't know what it is. There might be a real god, aliens or humans from an underground world. I can't possibly imagine it. Now, this is the next question. Recently, the popularity of the awakened in the entertainment industry is soaring high into the sky. How do you see this? All members of the guild wanted to participate in the 1st floor invasion. They had quietly waited for the top members of the guild to get some results. But among them, a man they didn't know had participated in the raid. He didn't participate in any guild meetings, so their nerves were scratched when he appeared. Of course, the man was well known within the guild. They were aware that the guild master had gifted him with a Bugatti Veyron. In contrast to their snobbish words, each one of them felt their spirit being crushed in front of a giant and felt a crushing pain in their stomach. No matter how proficient they were, they had never seen something like him. The man proved his skills to the 11 people participating in the raid, and they kept repeating, excellent and strong in regards to him. Even an orc was no match. It was no wonder there were complaints. Skills are secondary. Is he making a personal raid group within the dungeon? He brought in a female manager and a woman cleaning the toilers. Rather than a raid group, it is like he wants to create a flower garden. There was another problem. The guild gathered the optimal personnel as needed to form raid groups. Now the man was creating a raid group with fixed members of the guild. Making a raid group would create a fuss. The separation of powers would affect the guild. The guild members wouldn't just belong to the guild anymore. They could refuse the guild master's commands and only move according to the direction of the raid captain. There were many members that made a fuss. Li Jihai had been brought in as an outside manager, and he had taken a newly entered girl away. The guild's new hire that had only been there for a month was snatched away like a falling fruit. The man's behavior was just making a mockery of the guild's traditions. Thus, there was talk that he planned to make his raid group a flower garden, and the crucial cause of this turmoil, the fact that both women were beauties, was to blame. The muscular man stopped polishing his weapon and clicked his tongue. The leader has given his approval. We are not a mere guild. I want to hear your thoughts. This might not be a bad thing for the guild. He definitely has the skills. A skill with the rare rating is definitely worth investing in. I also believe in the results he has produced so far. If Sunbainim says so, ehyo. The guild members sighed as the muscular man shrugged. Think about it. We've cleared the first floor and established ourselves as South Korea's #1 guild. That means you will get benefits. The dungeons have appeared for 8 months, and now you will have some opportunities to play. Why are baby chicks acting so impatient? There were standard requirements. A much smaller number of monsters now existed on the first floor of the dungeon. Information arrived that they were disappearing here and there. The reliability was 99.9%. It was good news. Our chance has come? All the guild members hoped to explore the second floor of the dungeon. They didn't think the chance would come easily. The personnel who participated in the raid all received tremendous rewards. The various treasures found on the second floor transcended the rewards received by killing the creatures on the first floor. The muscular man smiled. In the near future, 3 raid groups filled with 12 people each will be formed to explore the second floor. It was originally scheduled to be announced a week later, but it should be okay for me to tell you this. Hyok. Really? 36 people would be mobilized for 3 raids filled with 12 people. All the people who heard the story had wide eyes. The muscular man turned his head and calmly said to everyone who was listening to the story, "So raise your skills. I'm saying this to all of you. Life is a battle. If something goes wrong, then it will end at once. If you want to gain some achievements, then build up your skills." In that sense, do you want to participate in a 10-day special training? Flash. Hands started to move like lightning. Me. I'd like that very much. Special training. The muscular man's eyes shone. Express hell training. You can't mess around. If you're not good enough, then you will die. Do you still want to go? It was like cold water had been poured on a wildfire. Hell training. He aimed to show them the real hell. Those who want to go, follow me. The muscular man stood up with his weapon. He was one of the 12 members who participated in the raid with Randolph Briggseel. He was convinced that only the strong could live in the future. He had been moving at a lukewarm pace, continuing to the second and third floor of the dungeon. He didn't stand a chance with his state right now. I've been too complacent with my skills. It has been a few months at best, an example of the strong becoming lazy. But there was a strong man in the guild he wanted to follow, a wall, and he would go beyond that wall. Ha-hoo, the muscular man, Kim Tae-wan. He was a man who would laugh while jumping into hellfire. The outside is quite noisy. I said to Kim Young-woo after hearing the noise outside from the sealed room. Kim Young-woo just laughed while rating my proposal about establishing a raid group. There are multiple times when they are noisy. Thanks to Randolph Nim clearing the first floor, you are now a perfect target. The time of your proposal. A festival. There were no festivals in the demon world. They divided the spoils of victory and enjoyed the atmosphere, but they didn't have any idea of the concept itself. In that sense, a human festival was very lively. Are you interested? In fact, I would have rented a huge hall sooner or later. It is pretty fun. Despite being a miser, Kim Yong-woo wrote something down. He was using his position as a guild master. I shook my head. That's okay. Rather, just make sure that there is no problem with the proposal passing. Kim Yong-woo scanned it and roughly shook his head. You don't want it formally? Still, it is good to get things straight. There is no problem with the proposal itself. I've already heard about an independent raid group that only focuses on attacking dungeons. It was the first time I submitted official documents, but the story of the raid I was creating had already spread through the guild. The speed at which the issue spread through the guild had spread beyond imagination. Kim Yong-woo looked at the proposal and muttered, "The raid name Devil Hunters. Somehow it reminds me of the Black Flame Dragon. Devil Hunters." The name of the raid group would be reduced to DH. The name was a reminder of my goal to get rid of all the demons in the dungeons and to become the devil. There shouldn't be any changes. I think it looks great. Should I seal it now? Kim Yong-woo, who had his attitude changed, asked him. I nodded, and Kim Yong-woo immediately stamped the proposal. This was the moment that the raid group Devil Hunters was launched. How are you going to fill the other group? One manager and one new member. You are walking down a very hard path. Wouldn't it help to recruit more influential people? Right now, I was thinking about the future of the raid group. I intended to make the strongest raid group, but had only found one appropriate person for it. My methods will take a bit of time, but I am confident they will become the strong raid group. It won't be bad from the guildmaster's position. It wasn't bad for a guild to have many strong members. Kim Yong-woo handed the proposal to me. I'm at your disposal. I am Randolph Nim's faithful servant. I will follow Master Nim. I never expected this when I rescued you. It was really surprising. I had been wandering the dungeon when I came across Kim Yong-woo and decided to help him. I hadn't hoped for something like this. Kim Yong-woo just grinned. Studying and social experience, I just used every chance I received to do well. Isn't it thanks to Master Nim that I broke through the first floor? I don't think my choice was wrong this time. Kim Yong-woo. He thought he was an elephant, but he realized that he was lower than an ant. Instead, he decided to stand next to the elephant. This was the secret of his life. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become the guild leader of one of Korea's top 5 guilds. I received the proposal and said, as long as you're not pretending in order to stab me in the back, I will help you. I hope you made the right choice. Ah! Don't say that, even as a joke. Kim Yong-woo waved both his hands. Only you know whether it is a joke or not. I gave him advice just in case he was prepared to betray me. It was in order to properly scare him. I turned my body. The proposal was stamped, so now I was going to plan my raid group. Will you participate in the festival? Kim Yong-woo asked before I opened the door. I will make a decision at the time. Then I will send you the official documents when the schedule has been determined. Thank you. It is natural. Kim Yong-woo's eyes blazed with his loyalty. I ignored him and opened the door of the room. This time, I will participate. I wasn't very interested in a human festival, but not participating would cause discord within the guild. I didn't care, but there was a need to create an amicable relationship. In order to be a member of Heaven's Will, I needed to participate in a minimum amount of activities. I was aware that the other side had no flexibility. I need to slowly build the foundation. The creation of my own raid group. The most urgent thing was to collect all the members. This time, the new member known as the Lightning Queen in my previous life appeared in my head, and a warm smile appeared. The spacious hall on the guild house's 3rd floor. It was the space given to the Devil Hunters raid group. It was a wide area for only 3 people, but it would become narrow once the positions started to fill up. There was no furniture, and I felt a strange tension as I entered the empty hall. The manager Lee Ji-hae and newly recruited member Yoon-hae were in a standoff. Stiff expressions were on their faces. I slowly opened up. What's going on? Lee Ji-hae confirmed my presence and said, Captain Nim, you shouldn't pick her. Uni, wasn't it just a mistake? It couldn't be helped. Have you accidentally killed someone? I'm sorry, but you're not dead. It was indeed a meaningful conversation. Lee Jihye seemed to be acting unfair towards Yuanhai. I looked over their appearances and nodded. There was a faint burning smell from Lee Jihai's hair, so I could guess the reason. It is due to Yuanhai's passive. In my previous life, Yuanhai had been called Lightning Queen. She had a young appearance like a student, and the bob cut and mischievous eyes gave him an impressive appearance. However, she was afflicted with some type of passive. I used Mind's Eye to take a deep look at Yuanhai's status window. Name, Yuanhai Occupation Hero Lightning Magician. Title, Dozen Lightning Strikes, R Magic Power +4. Stats, Strength 20, Intelligence 44, Agility, Stamina 14, Magic Power 45 +4. Potential, 138, 423. Uniqueness, has received the protection of the Spirit of Lightning. A state received after being hit by lightning and standing on the door between life and death. Skill, Lightning Bolt and Electric Current N, passive. It was a truly strange status window. Her potential was outstanding, the owner of the highest potential I had seen until now. It was comparable to Timely Rain's Guildmaster, Alan. The problem was the uniqueness. It was the part about receiving the protection of a lightning spirit. Perhaps due to the lightning spirit, her body acted as a big lightning rod. If lightning struck, then it would directly hit her. As a result, she even received a title. She might suffer a bit, but it wasn't bad. There were many toxins and waste running through the body. The owner of this talent could be called a genius, but the passive electric current is the problem. The lightning had a comfortable place and wandered inside the building. She unknowingly spread this aura everywhere she went. This was the reason why Lee Jihye's hair was burnt. Don't come any closer. If you take one more step, then I will attack, Lee Jihye warned. She didn't want to attack the enemy, but she needed extreme patience to endure the charred hairs. Yuanhye had a long face. Uni's hair was so beautiful that I inadvertently touched it, but my passive was activated. Uni, we are high sisters. Huh? I won't do it again. Lee Jihye and Yuanhye. Both of them had names that ended in high. People should overlook a small mistake, but Lee Jihye had no intention of forgiving her. We are not sisters. How can you call me Uni when you burned my hair? Don't you think it looks good? No, I'm kidding. So don't be like that. Sometimes I just joke around for fun. I'm sorry, Uni. You, stop, I finally spoke. If you don't take it, then I will throw it out. Yes? Like I said, for me, this is an item that I don't need. My body wasn't weak enough to need an inferior potion like this. A wound on my body would need an advanced potion to cure. Lee Jihye seemed really moved as she looked at me with tears in her eyes. Thank you, I will treasure it. I inwardly shook my head. I didn't understand the uproar over a little bit of burned hair is the first time someone had expectations from me. Still, I'm sorry, you are probably going to be disappointed. Yuanhye laughed. From an early age, no one ever had any expectations for her. Many people were scared of her and wouldn't come close. She was struck by lightning and visited a shaman, but the shaman just proclaimed, "This is karma from a previous life. Build up your virtue." Even her family and relatives were unnerved and saw her as a burden. Yuanhye was delighted when she awakened. She could finally be called a talent. However, the passive electric current flowing through her body brought her back to despair. It is serious. If Yuanhye was useless, then the vast majority of humanity was less than trash. The flower hadn't blossomed yet, but I need to fix that mentality. I should make a move. Her thoughts were full of self-deprecation. If that continued, it was natural for her health to fade. Furthermore, Yuanhye was a magician, not a warrior. All her abilities were focused in intelligence and magic power, not the physical traits of a tough warrior. The door between life and death. In the past, she learned some knowledge while dealing with tough opponents. I didn't personally experience how great she was. It would be a shame to waste that talent. In the past, Yuanhye didn't fully understand her talent or ability as a magician. Of course, I had no intention of letting the past life repeat itself. Leaving this neglected would be a sin. If Yuanhye was perfectly raised, then she could ride the lightning and aim it at enemies. Killing creatures or completing quests would cause them to grow. It might be doubted because it couldn't be seen, but experience was always been gained. I could see it rise with mind's eye. The potential opening, and the way the abilities rose depending on their actions. Using a sword against the creatures would have a higher chance of physical abilities rising. It is best to raise the abilities evenly. Let's imagine that a magician had 100 intelligence, 100 magic power, and 30 points for everything else. Obviously, their body would explode from an enormous hit from a creature. There were constraints on using magic successively. Magic wasn't that easy to use. A double-edged sword, a power that could cause miracles but also rebound on the user. In the end, I entered. Yuanhe muttered as she stumbled after me into the dungeon. Signs of anxiety were clearly evident. She was so scared from the beginning that she couldn't open her mouth any longer. Don't worry. You aren't going to die in a place like this. It was sincere. Yuanhe's level of talent was a frontrunner in the world. In my previous life, she had raised her level to being one of the 10 strongest humans. Unless she encountered a duke traveling in my dungeon, she could kill anything in here. I will believe in Captain Nim. The desire for survival emerged in Yuanhe's eyes. I just laughed. The story about how I dealt with the orcs on the second floor of the dungeon was famous within the guild. It was funny that the master of the goblins and kobolds couldn't handle them. Yuanhe followed without saying anything. Finish off the 2 kobolds that are coming. Hyok. Get ready to fight, but once again, you shouldn't use magic. I will try. Her tone changed. It was filled with tension. Yuanhe had been to dungeons several times. Despite not killing a lot of creatures, her high intelligence meant she could recover from panic. She wouldn't give up easily. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Yuanhe hypnotized herself. She sincerely wanted to live up to my expectations. She also wanted to prove to herself that she wasn't useless. It was a good thing. If she continued being frightened by the creatures, then I would have been disappointed. It was important to have the will to fight. They're coming, I said in a low voice. We're how Jiskeln Fadmald. I will deal with 1 kobold, and the remaining one is up to you, Yuan. Yes, yep. Keek. The 2 kobolds could smell that prey was present and hurried. I reached out, and a sword appeared out of thin air. It was a magic sword with a rare rating that I used 20,000 points to purchase. A weapon had been necessary to handle the higher-ranked creatures summoned during the beginner's protection period. The appearance was different from an ordinary long sword. However, it issued a very sharp light in the darkness. I grasped the sword lightly and said while looking at the kobolds approaching, "The kobold has similar strength to you. Don't use straightforward attacks. Just like the goblins, be careful of their nails and teeth." I demonstrated for Yuanhe. I moved as slowly as possible and showed her some normal moves. Keek. The kobolds barely reached my chest. The location was a little low to handle with a sword, but there were little tricks that could kill them. Duck. I kicked the ground. Dust rose up. Kadsjadneds. The 2 kobolds hesitated for a moment. I pierced the kobold's forehead in that moment. They are short-sighted. Their eyes aren't good. Thus, they will briefly panic when there is smoke. In the meantime, use that chance to attack the head. It is best to cut off their heads. At the same time, I removed my sword from the forehead and cut the neck. 1 kobold was perfectly handled in a moment. Now it is your turn. Kick! The remaining creature went berserk. Its 2 eyes turned red and it kept snorting. It had a furious appearance. Gulp. Yuanhe barely maintained her spirit. She was barely holding herself together. I stepped back. I didn't attack it, so the aggro wasn't on me. Naturally, the kobold would aim at the target closest to it. You aren't going to die, but I won't act as your guardian. I would stay in the background until Yuanhe's life was in danger. Handling the creature alone would greatly increase her stats. Pushing herself to the limit would raise all her abilities. She needed to cross the wall, but she needed to climb it alone. Yuanhe was now facing her first wall. Whoop! Yuanhe took a deep breath and moved her feet like I did. Dust went everywhere. The kobold hesitated. It was only for 0.5 seconds, but Yuanhe didn't miss the gap. Bam! But it was shallow. The sword barely pierced the skin of the kobold. Yuanhe hastily pulled out her sword and moved it to the neck. At that moment, the kobold raised its hand. It was a posture to catch the attack and allowed it to keep its neck. Instead, the arm it lifted flew. Ah! Yuanhai cried out in a sad voice as her blow was blocked. She cut its arm instead of its neck. What was she supposed to do now? Finally, she turned and looked at me, but she didn't put down her sword. No. Her high intelligence meant she could find a resolution. She also had a strong supporter. Yuanhai looked at the kobold. The kobold was in pain from one of its arms being cut off. Its behavior was noticeable. Yuanhai felt some hope after seeing its status. Again! She raised the sword up high. She lacked the strength to pierce through the thick leather. That's why she used a strike with all her power. Bam! Bam! The sound of the sword hitting flesh could be heard with every swing. Soon the cries of the kobold stopped and it became silent. Hack! Hack! Teong! Yuanhai threw the sword to the ground. She sat on the floor and breathed harshly. She only fought for 2-3 minutes, but sweat was pouring down. The body of the kobold was completely unrecognizable. Well done, I smiled with satisfaction. I knew she had thought of giving up when the kobold blocked the second attack to the neck, because I didn't tell her what to do if it was blocked. But Yuanhai overcame the crisis by herself. The wall had cracked. That's why I was satisfied. I pulled out a handkerchief prepared in advance that Yuanhai used to wipe off the blood. A potion was also used to heal any wounds. The passive electric current attacked my body, but I didn't care. Yuanhai watched her wounds being healed with a blank stare before asking me, "Did I do it correctly, Captain Nim?" Yes, it was admirable. Ah! At first she hadn't thought it was possible, but in the end, she did it alone. Yuanhai's body trembled as she was inspired. A great performance in front of the captain. Normally, her passive skill put captains off from accepted her as a member. The cores also needed to be divided after the hunt was over. Now there was no need to do that. She could handle one kobold alone. Yuanhai didn't want to lose this feeling. To Yuanhai, who had lived most of her life with a sense of defeat, this feeling was more precious than anything else. "If you want, then we can stop here today," I said. I deemed that this was sufficient for the first day. She followed me pretty well, and I was pleased with her performance. But Yuanhai shook her head. "Ah, it's nothing. I am able to do more. I think I can." "Is it really okay?" "Yes." "Then don't lose that willpower." Willpower was very important, a commitment that she wouldn't stop. Not bad. Yuanhai had been scared in her previous life. She wanted to prevent any danger to her body. Safety-oriented behaviors were soaked into her body. But now Yuanhai was different. The blood of the warrior inside her had woken up. She would grow wonderfully in the direction I set. Soon she won't have to work to control the lightning in her body. I looked at Yuanhai with shining eyes. There was a sufficient amount of time. Now I had to check her willpower. She came here on a forced march, but now it was different. Lightning Queen. The name of a magician who handled lightning in her previous life. This time she would be lightning.